What is going on, guys? The Inside the Blue podcast, and today we have our Week 17 picks. Almost done with the regular season. We've given it every single week, and we're getting close to playoffs, and I'm going to have that video out for you guys. Of course, playoff predictions of who I think is going to win the Super Bowl, and it's going to be a fun Super Bowl. It's going to be a fun playoff because there's a lot of good teams, and there's a lot of surprising teams like the Denver Broncos potentially making the playoffs. The rebound from the Chargers with Justin Herbert making the playoffs potentially. Are the Falcons going to make the playoffs? Is it going to be Kirk Cousins starting? Michael Penix Jr.? The Rams are back in it potentially. The Washington Commanders might be the biggest surprise I have for this year to make the playoffs. Jaden Daniels' first year looks amazing. Dan Quinn just beat the Philadelphia Eagles last week. Rather, Jaden Daniels did, but Dan Quinn's done a good job as well. But let's get into these picks. And our first game is Patrick Mahomes taking on Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And like I said, I think I said this a few weeks ago when I was looking at the final 5 weeks for the Chiefs. There wasn't really a team left besides Buffalo that's going to give them a run for Kansas City and potentially beat the KC Chiefs. And the Bills ended up doing it. And that's their only loss. And you look at this season for Kansas City, no Rashee Rice. Pacheco is hurt for a while. Hollywood Brown just returned. So they're getting some guys back. But overall, now we're really getting the Chiefs at their full potential. But like I said, even without those guys, Mahomes hasn't had his best year. But they're 14-1 and they're still winning football games. And I can't really see the Pittsburgh Steelers doing much. They couldn't beat Baltimore on the road. I know they're home for this game, but I just can't see them. I can't see them winning against the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are too good. And as we get into our next game, 2 playoff teams, and that's the Baltimore Ravens at 10-5 and the Houston Texans at 9-6. CJ Stroud has had a slump year, right? I think he hasn't had the year that maybe a lot of fans or analysts have been expecting. Maybe we expected more of a leap rather than a slump. And they're 9-6. They're still going to take their division. I'm not really worried with them losing a game or really not making the playoffs. I think they're going to stay in the playoffs. And they still have a good team overall. I mean, I know Tank Dell is hurt, and he's probably done for the year. Prayers to Tank Dell, a very disgusting injury there, and I hope he is okay. So prayers out to Tank Dell. Baltimore Ravens, they just have a unit. And Lamar Jackson's playing really good again, and I expect him to play really good against the Houston Texans. And to go into an 11-5 record. But getting into next week, Geno Smith, 8-7, almost completed the comeback against the Minnesota Vikings, but was unable to. And they take on a bad Chicago Bears team. A Chicago Bears team led by Caleb Williams, who has had a okay first year. The new head coach, once they get an offensive-minded head coach, I think Caleb's going to start to thrive with Chicago, and that division's only going to look stronger. I mean, you have you're going to have 3 playoff teams coming from that division with the Lions probably getting the bye as the number 1 seed. You got Green Bay having another good year. They just beat up the Saints. Not like that's impressive, but shutting out an opponent for the first time this year is impressive. No team has been shut out all year, and the Saints hold that award for being the only team to be shut out. And the Vikings, can't forget about Sam Darnold making the playoffs and having a really good year, only 2 losses on the year. But I think Seattle does take care of business and does win this football game, and it makes it interesting for that division. And with the Rams game, big game for the Rams, they got to win. They got to win that game, right? And we'll see how that one goes. But our next game is Justin Herbert taking on Drake May. And I've really liked Drake May's game this year. I know they're 3-12, but that's because Drake May doesn't have the weapons. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson's a good running back in the backfield. They have an okay offensive line, but I think if they acquire a a wide receiver, whether it's in the draft like a Travis Hunter, or they go out and sign a guy like T. Higgins, I think we'll see an evolution of Drake May. But I think looking at the record 3-12, they just just almost beat the Buffalo Bills at Buffalo. So I mean, not saying they're gonna win this football game, because I don't think they're gonna beat the Chargers, but I think they could keep games close. And I think if you're a Patriots fan, you gotta love that you have a franchise caliber QB in Drake May. And for the future, you need to get weapons for this guy. He knows he can sling the football. I know he has some turnover issues, but a rookie quarterback, that's expected. This game, Denver against Cincinnati, could be one of the games of the week. I think Bo Nix. I mean, he lost to the LA Chargers. Sorry. Joe Burrow knows that he needs to win football games. He knows that they have a slim chance. I think it's a 14% chance they could win, make the playoffs, and that's if they win out. Indianapolis has to lose a football game, or Miami. I think that scenario. If there's a time that Joe Burrow is going to show up even more than he already has, because he's had a great year and an underrated year. I think people look at his year and then they're like, oh, there's no chance he's going to win the MVP. I don't think he is, but Joe Burrow's had a really solid year. And it comes down to the defense of why they're losing football games. And I think if they win this football game, I really like the chances of them making the playoffs. But then again, you got to watch out for teams like the Indianapolis Colts or the Miami Dolphins. But for what I'm seeing for the teams that Miami's playing, or the teams that who is it? Indianapolis is playing. I mean, they're taking on the New York Giants, and we know how that one's probably going to go. I know the Rams are going to probably play this game very tight with the Arizona Cardinals, and I know the Arizona Cardinals are trying to not let the Rams get into the playoffs and not let them get that high seed. I think they'd be the number 3 seed. Yeah, they'd be the number 3 seed, and they would go on to take Green Bay. That would be an interesting matchup. But I think they do win this football game. Matt Stafford's playing good enough. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, a really solid duo when they're healthy, man, and Kyren Williams in that backfield. Really solid stuff, and the big concern is that defense. They do allow a decent amount of points. But getting into our next game, divisional matchup, Aaron Rodgers taking on Josh Allen, and you would think this would be a great matchup, but it's not. The Jets are 4-11. Buffalo just played a close game against the Patriots. They always seem to play close games, in my opinion, too, against the Patriots. But the Jets are not good, and I feel bad. I am a Giants fan, but I do feel bad for Jets fans, because looking on this team on paper, I wouldn't expect 4 wins out of them. I mean, I know Aaron Rodgers is aging and all that. They got Davante Adams, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and they just can't seem to string things together. Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed on the CBs. They haven't been good ever since they fired Robert Saleh, letting up more points. Getting into another game, another Tank Bowl. The Las Vegas Raiders won their game against the Jaguars, and Antonio Pierce came out and basically said, like, hey, we don't care about draft position. We're here to win football games, and I respect that. No NFL coach wants to purposely lose football games, and I know it seems like that's what Brian Daboll is doing for the New York Giants, but in this game, I'm going to take the Jags. Tennessee, I know Mason Rudolph is projected to start this football game. We're going to take the Jags in a close one, and you know what? Antonio Pierce wants to win football games. We're going to take them as well. We're going to take them on the road to defeat the New Orleans Saints, who looked terrible. No matter who's playing quarterback, they started 2-0 on the season, and they're 5-11 if they lose this football game. But getting into our next slate of games, man, oh man. We were at a point in 2022 where it was this same type of game, and the Giants successfully clinched the playoff spot. They beat the Colts, and they got into the playoffs with Daniel Jones. Now, they have nothing to play for except for to continue to lose football games. Let me know a comment below if you think Brian Daboll is going to get fired. 2-14, probably 2-15 because they got the Birds next week, which is unfortunate. But Philadelphia taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Philadelphia lost Jalen Hurts and they ended up losing to the Washington Commanders in a close game. Final play of the game, and Jaden Daniels, man, that guy is something special. Dallas is 4-1 under Cooper Rush in their last 5 games. It's not going to matter. I feel like even if Kenny Pickett starts this game, I still think with Saquon, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, I still think they have a good chance of winning this football game. And getting into our final slate of games, that is the Carolina Panthers taking on the Bucs. We're gonna go with the Bucs. But here's the thing with the Buccaneers. I'm shocked they lost to the Dallas Cowboys, but props to Dallas. I mean, Dallas looked like a really solid football team. I mean, Mike Evans was held to 59 receiving yards, and a lot of people thought he was going to go off with 2+ touchdowns. Really solid start for him, but getting into next week, Miami's got to win their football games, and they got to win these type of games. When you're taking on the bad football teams, you got to take care of them. I said that the Broncos and Bengals might be the game of the week just because of scenarios. Like if the Bengals win, it's huge. If the Broncos win, it's a really solid year for them, 10-6. But we forgot about this game. And that's the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Green Bay Packers. Sam Darnold against Jordan Love. Kevin O'Connell against Matt LaFleur. I think this game's going to be real darn close. I don't know really who's going to guard Justin Jefferson. Is Jair Alexander even healthy? I don't know. But if there's a game that Minnesota is going to lose, it's going to be against the Green Bay Packers on the road. And the Minnesota Vikings are going to drop this one at home. Vikings lose. Washington taking on Atlanta. I assume Michael Penix is going to start this week. It's not going to matter. It is the Jaden Daniels show, and I firmly believe that we're getting a really solid quarterback in Washington. I mean, it's pretty safe to say that's not something new. I don't know what they're going to do with Kirk Cousins in that contract, but it's terrible. In the final game, you would think it's an amazing matchup, NFC Championship. Lions had them on the hook, and then San Fran ended up winning that football game and going to the Super Bowl and losing to the Chiefs. I don't care how banged up this Lions football team is. They play with grit. They play with toughness. They're not losing this football game. But anyways, guys, of course, I'm your host, Vin, Inside the Boo Podcast, our Week 17 picks. Week 18's next week, and then we get into the playoffs, baby. But that's going to do it for this podcast, of course. Leave a like, subscribe. On the road to 300 subs. 2025 is around the corner. Tell your friends about this podcast. And anyways, guys, that's going to do it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.